Hey guys, welcome back to my channel on Python programming, and in this video we are going to cover the following topics. So first we will be looking at the error, then we will be looking at the exception, and then we will see some of the keywords which we use in Python for exception handling. So let's get started. Let me quickly open my Visual Studio Code, and here you can see I have already copied some of the topics which we are going to cover today. So the first topic which we are going to cover today is an error. So let's say if I have this code that if a is equals to 10, print a equals to 10, then if I execute this program, you will see it has been successfully executed and the value of a has been printed. But let me remove this colon from here, and if I run this program again, here you can see that Python is saying, hey, it's a syntax error and there is some problem on line number 7, and we know what is the problem, that we have missed to put a colon here, and if we do place it again, it will run successfully. So any such thing or any problem which occurs due to the if we don't follow the syntax, then it is called as an error in Python, and it is usually raised during the interpretation of the program itself. So moving on further to exceptions, so we have I think we have a pretty good idea about error. So error will be raised whenever there is a syntax problem in our program. Now what is an exception? So let me write the same program again, and this time we are going to follow the syntax properly as we used in our previous loop. So here you can see that I have copied or used the code from line number 7 and 8 in line number 11 and 12, and if I run this program, we know that there is no syntax problem, but again there is an error, and it is saying this time that name b is not defined. So what it is saying? It is saying that on line number 11, when it tries to compare the value of b with 10, it is not able to find the value or the variable b in the memory because we have not initialized it before using it. So such type of error which are raised during the runtime of the program are called as the exceptions. So I hope you would have got the difference between the error and this exception. There is a fine thin line between the error and exception, that exceptions can be handled, error needs to be rectified. Error are raised due to syntax problem, exceptions are raised during the runtime. So now what or how we can handle the exceptions? So for handling the exceptions, we have the following keywords in Python, and that is try, except, else, finally, and raise. So let's start with try. So we have this try block similar to if block, like we have if for block, if block. Similarly we have a try block, and then it should have a follow block, that is except block always, else it will throw an error. So let me write a empty code, and if I run this program, you can see if I run this program, you can see it does not throw any error because we have a try followed by except. And similarly if we write finally here, then you will see that it still does not throw any error. But if we don't use anything with try and we want to use only bare or alone, we want to use try alone, then it is not possible, or it is not a correct way in Python, and it will say syntax error, and then it will say unexpected end of file while parsing. So why this happened? Because the Python tried to find the finally or the except block when after this try block, and it was not able to find it. Therefore it is saying that hey, there is an unexpected end of file while parsing. So while parsing, it was not able to find anything like except and finally. Now let's write some code which we can use inside this, and let me say accept exception as e. So this is how we catch any exception in Python, and let me say that we have b divided by 0 print, or we can say c is equals to b divided by 0, and then we will say print c value of c is and this, and we can use this one, and we have learned about the fill string earlier, so we can use this format. And then in the exception block we can catch this exception as print see any exception was raised during execution. So if I run this program, we know what is going to happen. On line number 17, there is a try block which will start, and then on line number 18 what we have done is we have tried to divide a variable that is b by 0, and since we know that division of any variable with a non or a zero number gives infinity, and this is going to throw an exception, and therefore it will go to line number 20. So first let me try to divide it by 10, and let's see what we get. So when we try to divide it by 10, you will see that it has given me a float value that is 1.0. But if the same problem or the same thing I will try like this, it will say hey exception was raised during execution. So okay, to understand this better, let me first execute this program like this, and we don't require this indentation here. So if I try to execute this program, you will see that it is saying hey, on line number 18 there was an exception which was raised, and it is saying 0 division error, division by a 0. So we know if we divide or try to divide any number by 0, it will throw an exception, or it will give me a infinite value, and it is not possible. So therefore it will throw an error, and it will say division by 0. So now what I want is our program has got exited abruptly here. So what I want is I want it to print some, or it should handle it smoothly. So to do that, what I will do is I will just put a try block here and except block here, and if I execute my program now, some problem is there. I have used print and I have not indented it. So if now I will execute this program, you can see that it tried to execute this code, and since it got an exception on this line number 18, it went to the except block. So while executing the try block, if there is any exception being caught or being raised by the program, then this except block is executed. So here in this case it happened, and therefore this line number 20, that is except block, has been executed, and this was printed on the screen. So this is how we handle any exception in our program, and we can print the message on our std out according to our choice. So here we have handled this exception. You can also do like print e, and this will print the stack trace of the problem, and here you will see that it has said exception was raised during execution, and finally it is by Python. It comes from Python, which has been defined, which is the exception which was raised, and that exception is division by 0. So this is how we used try and except block. Now let's suppose that what we want to do is that after doing this we want some code to be always executed. So for that we have finally keyword in Python. So if I use finally, and then I will say print, hey, I have got executed, and if I run this program, now you will see it prints, hey, I have got executed. So you have seen that even if the exception was raised, in that case except and finally both blocks were executed. But what if there is no exception raised? In such case, what will be done with finally? So let's see and run this program. So here you can see that this time there was no exception and the value of C was printed, and then the control from this line number 19 went directly to the finally block. So finally block is used, this block is used to execute a piece of code in both situations, that is if exception is raised or not raised. So this is the use of finally block, that it is used to execute a code even if the exception is raised or if it is not raised. Now what is the use or the practical use? We can implement this finally, or we can use this finally. So let's suppose we want to try, or we want to open a file, and what we want to do is we want to say, hey, if this file is there, then open, or we should print, or we should execute the operation on that file. And while reading that file, if suppose there was an exception, or while executing the try block there was an exception raised while doing the operation on that file, then we want that in the finally block that file handle should be closed. So in those cases this finally block can be helpful. So this is the one of the scenario where we can use try and finally block, and there can be several other scenarios in which we can use this finally block. So basically I will repeat again that finally we can use when we want our code to be executed in even or we can say if exception is raised or even if it is not raised. So now we have one more construct, or we can say one more keyword in Python, and that is else, and we have already seen it with other like for loop, but in this case we are going to use else with the try block. And how we can use it, let's see. Print C is printed. So in this case let's run this program, and you can see that C is printed, has been executed. So what has happened in this case? Here firstly the value of C was assigned on line number 18, and then value of C was printed. Then since there was no exception, it did not execute this except block. Then it went to else block and this was executed, and then finally it went to the finally block, and hey, I have this line was executed and the message was printed on the screen. So now let me change the situation, and this time the exception will be raised, and let's run this program. And this time you can see that this raised an exception. It went to the except block and it printed on the screen exception was raised during execution, and then the exception was printed, and finally it went to this final block. So this time the else part was not printed. So I hope you would have got that else this block is executed only when the code doesn't throw any exception. So this is the use of else block, and it should be used before finally. And I hope it is clear now that when or how we can use the finally and else, and what is the use of these four keywords for error handling in Python. So finally we have the raise keyword. So raise is used whenever we want to throw any custom messages, or we want to throw any custom errors in Python. And how to use it, let me write a code. So let's say x equals to 10, and what I will do is if type of x is integer, print x. In fact I would say x is not, and then what I will do is I will raise an error, and I will say raise type error, and I will say hey, x is not int type. So in this case you can see that what we have done is we have tried to find out the type of x, and if it is not integer type, then we should throw an error on the screen, and that is raise, and it will say that hey, there is a type error and x, and it will say hey, x is not the int type. So if I run this program, then it has not thrown any error. And if I change this value to 10.0, let's see what we get now. And you can see that we have successfully thrown our custom message on the screen on the stdout, and it is saying that hey, x is not integer type. So this is how we can use the raise. We can use raise in our code to throw any custom message which we want to. And this is all about error handling in Python. Hope you would have enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask or comment on my videos. I will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you, and please do subscribe to my channel, and hope if you have liked the video, you can press the like button as well. Thank you.